Call to order the fourth meeting of the Standing Committee on House Banking and Insurance. We do have three bills to consider this morning. At this time, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Representative Bentley. Representative Fisher.
Here.
Representative Flannery.
Here.
Representative Frazier. Representative Gooch. Representative Hatton.
Here.
Representative Kirk McCormick. Representative Koenig. Representative Cole Carney.
Here in my annex office.
Representative Lockett.
Here.
Representative McPherson.
Here.
Representative Meredith.
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Roberts.
Here in the room.
Representative Santoro.
Here.
Representative Smith.
Here.
Representative Stevenson. Representative Upchurch.
Here.
Representative Westrom. Vice Chair Lewis.
Here.
Chairman Rowland.
Present. We do have a quorum authorized to conduct business this morning. I know that Senator Alvarado is chairing the committee at this exact same time, so we'll go ahead and get started, and we'll do the bills in order. First up will be Senate Bill 44. Senator, come to the table, introduce yourself, your guest, and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee. I'm Ralph Alvarado, State Senator for the 28th District. This is Ms. Gwen Cooper. If you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you, Chairman, for your time today. Gwen Cooper, CEO of Patient Services.
I appreciate the opportunity to present Senate Bill 44. As we all know, our nation as a whole, and Kentucky in particular, is in the midst of a healthcare crisis. And every year, patients lose their health insurance because they can't pay their premium for a period of time or even their medication copays. And since the beginning of the pandemic, it's been worse. Millions of people have lost their health insurance. And for many Kentuckians, access to charitable assistance is an essential part of the healthcare safety net. Senate Bill 44 simply ensures that nonprofits and places of worship like our churches can pay all or part of your health insurance premiums and other cost sharing for your medications and treatment if and when needed, and insurance companies have to accept and count those payments as if you made them yourself. This is like when a church or charity pays for someone's food or rent, the grocery store and the landlord accept the payment regardless of where it came from. This bill will keep Kentuckians from being pushed off their insurance and onto Medicaid or having to rely on the government for disability. It'll enable folks to continue to work, care for their families, and contribute to society, not rely on the government and at no additional cost to taxpayers. Charitable assistance is a crucial lifeline for patients in Kentucky, and while healthcare is extremely complicated, this issue really shouldn't be. I'm asking for your support on this bill to help Kentucky families keep their insurance and access to care through charitable assistance instead of being pushed off onto Medicaid. I'll turn that over to Ms. Gwen Cooper.
Again, thank you for your time today. We appreciate the opportunity to bring this important piece of legislation to you. Patient Services has a long-standing relationship with Kentucky, and you may not know that we administer the Children with Special Health Care Needs Title V grant for people with bleeding disorders, cystic fibrosis, and juvenile arthritis. Over our tenure in Kentucky, by providing case management for people to make sure that they can stay on their insurance, we have saved the state of Kentucky over $55 million in healthcare costs. This piece of legislation is very simple. It simply allows a charity to do what a charity is meant to do, which is to provide patients assistance through financial assistance for premiums, cost sharing, travel, nursing, infusion, anything a patient needs in order to have access to their medications and their treatments. It's that simple. 46% of people have elected not to fill their prescriptions because they can't afford it. And in March to April alone of 2020, due to the pandemic, Kentucky's Medicaid rolls increased by 7%. This good piece of legislation simply prevents people from having to spend down their assets and go on to Medicaid. It allows people.
Second.
We do have a motion and a second. We do have a question, and we also have someone signed up to speak on the other side of the issue. Do you want to hear that first, Representative Gooch, or go ahead and ask your question? Okay, go ahead, Representative Gooch.
Okay, Senator, I have great respect for you, and some of the things that you said earlier, no question, I agree with. We're in a healthcare crisis. People can't pay their premiums. There are reasons for that. Federal government laws that have been passed. People can't pay their deductibles and copays because what happened because of those changes, we forced the cost so high that all people then could afford were the really high deductible low copay plans. I mean, that's, and I know that personally, my wife just was prescribed a medication that's going to be $600 a month, and she chose not to take it, which I said you need to, but she hasn't because, of the cost. So I know what you're trying to do here. I just feel like at some point, though, instead of doing all these little things that really don't solve the problem, when are we ever going to solve the problem? When are we going to try to address the real issues? Or why are premiums so high we can't afford them? Why is it that we can only afford the really high deductible plan? All of those types of things. And part of the reason is because someone's deciding for us that, if you're going to have a plan, you're going to have the very best. Now, if you can't afford it, you got nothing. But we're going to force you to take the very best plan, and I just, why is it that prescription drugs prices are so much higher in the United States than anywhere else? And so, but the only question that I do have is, have you talked to the Department of Insurance to see if they have had any problems with this bill?
Yeah, I have not heard anything from them. I know we have regular meetings with the cabinet, and haven't heard anything from DOI on this. In terms of a complete sea change for healthcare, Representative, you make my mouth water. You're asking a doctor, how do we fix healthcare? There's probably 1,000 different solutions, but they're really, I've got some tremendous ideas that I've proposed to plenty of insurance companies on how we fix at least the drug costs, to say instead of doing backroom deals with pharmaceutical companies, how about you just give us a budget? You know how much a disease state, how much you want to spend on diabetes or hypertension. So if you want to spend $43.22, you tell the patient, I'm willing to give you $43.22 to manage your hypertension. You and your doctor figure out what medicines to try. And if you want to have pharmaceutical companies bring down their drug costs, they'll have a drug that might cost $200, and they say, but this patient only has $43.22 to spend. You better bring that price down or you're not going to sell your product. But the doctor and the patient decide instead of having pharmaceutical companies and insurance companies decide. And if we can get our insurance companies to do that kind of a model, they'll control their costs. They know how much they'll spend per disease state. They can accumulate so many disease states and say, here's your budget, and let that patient, that doctor decide. You probably cover 90% of the costs. The big things would be chemotherapy and big, heavy, expensive treatments. But for a lot of those chronic states, that would work. And when I proposed it to insurance companies, a lot of their big CEOs, they think it's a novel idea. And I go, no, really, it's just a budget. But that's a whole other discussion I can get into on this issue. DOI hasn't expressed any concern for me. There's no fiscal note as far as an impact for the state. And I've talked to the cabinet regularly, and I think this bill they're okay on, from my understanding.
One follow-up.
Go ahead.
Would it apply to the state insurance group as well?
No, it does not. And it applies, and I want to make sure that that's clear, but I don't believe it. I think it applies across the board, but there's an exemption from my understanding, for state employee health plan.
Correct.
One follow-up. The state plan or other self-insured plans?
No, I don't think it applies for all self-insured plans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Gooch. We do have remotely joining us today, Tom Stevens, Executive Director, Kentucky Association of Health Plans. Welcome. Tom, introduce yourself.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Introduce yourself and proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Tom Stevens, and I'm the Executive Director of the Kentucky Association of Health Plans. KHP is the trade association for Kentucky's commercial health insurance providers. We're here this morning to sound the alarm about Senate Bill 44 and ask you to vote no. Now, I realize that you've probably been contacted by numerous charities and patient advocacy groups who say that this bill does nothing more than allow charities to pay someone's premiums or deductibles. However, there is a lot more to this bill than simple philanthropy. Senate Bill 44 incentivizes foundations like Patient Services, Inc. to pay private insurance co-payments for someone who may otherwise be eligible for a government-sponsored program like Medicare or Medicaid. On the surface, this sounds like a laudable goal. Don't we want to keep our citizens off government entitlement programs? Sure. Won't this save the Commonwealth and its taxpayers money? Alas, as with most things involving health insurance, the devil is in the details. No one, especially my members, are suggesting we prohibit genuine charities from helping with medical expenses. But what SB 44 will really accomplish is making sure that providers and Big Pharma maximize cash flows by redirecting patients from government programs with lower reimbursement rates to private market coverage with higher reimbursement rates. So why does this matter? besides potentially leaving unwitting patients on the hook for future copays, deductibles, and coinsurance when the charity walks away. These practices undermine the individual market by skewing the risk pool, driving up premiums, and ultimately increasing healthcare costs for individuals and small businesses. It's also foreseeable that if enacted, we will see an influx of individuals with severe ailments choosing to seek treatment in Kentucky. My members have asked me to remind you about a similar phenomenon that took place after House Bill 250 in 1994, when charities were set up to pay premiums for patients with high-cost conditions to take advantage of Kentuckians' favorable health insurance coverage. The practice was then banned in Health Purchasing Alliance and in Kentucky's high-risk pool, Kentucky Access. These types of policies lead to adverse selection. The charities don't look to pay premiums for healthier individuals. They're looking for folks that have the highest cost conditions. This leads to additional costs being added to the risk pool, meaning more premiums will be needed to meet these costs. As we previously shared with the other chamber, one area these practices are most prevalent with is dialysis providers for patients with end-stage renal disease. These third-party entities, funded directly or indirectly by providers, facilities, or big pharma, pay the patient premiums. They can then sit back and virtually guarantee a higher return on investment because the commercial insurers pay substantially higher amounts for dialysis treatments than Medicare or Medicaid. And while it may not be legal to steer a patient to a specific provider, in our rural areas, it's largely foreseeable that patients will seek care close to home, and with limited options, these foundations can guarantee paydays. The Washington Post called these charities a, quote, lucrative philanthropic model for donors, where for every $1 million the drug industry spends on charity support access, they have the potential to generate up to $21 million for the sponsor company. As we continue climbing out of the COVID-19 crisis that's affected every aspect of our economy, transferring what is effectively a provider big pharma bonus onto the backs of Kentucky's commercial insurance market, while perhaps well-intended, undermines the auspices of philanthropy. This is a bad prescription for Kentucky. Don't let Kentucky become a health insurance destination. We ask you to please vote no on SB 44. Subject to your questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Do we have any questions? Representative Gooch.
Thank you. I think what I heard you say is that, of course, let me start by saying that I think we all agree that whenever you have, if everyone buys insurance, you don't really have a problem with pre-existing conditions or high-cost conditions or everything, because there's enough people paying the premiums, to take care of that. But I think your point is that if you have charitable groups who volunteer to pay people's premiums, they are going to not look to find some healthy 20-year-old to pay their premiums. They're going to look to pay premiums for someone my age who has chronic health conditions, very high cost conditions, and they will pay my premiums so that I then will have insurance that probably reimbursed at a higher rate than if I were to have to go on Medicaid or something. Is that correct?
Yes, Representative Gooch, that's exactly correct.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from members of the committee? If not, we have a motion and a second properly in front of us at this time. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Bentley, Representative Fisher,
Yes.
Representative Flannery,
I'd like to explain my vote, Mr. Chair. I'm going to vote yes. However, there are some issues I would like to talk to the Kentucky Association of Health Plans about. Thank you.
Representative Frazier, Representative Gooch,
Can I explain my vote? This is the tough one. I mean, it's not tough that we want to help people with, that want to donate and that sort of thing. But I think there really are legitimate implications as to why it really affects the overall market out there. And I don't know. I'm really torn. I'm going to go ahead and cast a reluctant vote because I understand what you're trying to do, but I think you're probably having much more unintended consequences than you realize. Thank you.
Representative Gooch, could you clarify your vote, please?
Reluctant, yes.
Representative Hatton.
Explain my vote, Mr. Chair. I'm going to pass today. I voted for this last year, and it seemed like something that was an easy yes, but I guess I've just got a lot more to learn about it based on the testimony today, so I'm going to pass for now.
Representative Kirk McCormick.
Yes.
Is this the bill? I haven't had a chance to fully. Is this the one where if it passes, the deductibles, out-of-pocket deductible, expense does not go towards deductibles?
No.
There are two bills. This bill is specifically for charities to provide cost-sharing and premium assistance for needs-based financial aid for patients that are needs-based tested. There's a lot of information in that testimony that is completely false, and I look forward to having the opportunity to talk to you all. So this is not the accumulator bill. This is specifically for nonprofits to be able to pay financial assistance for patients that need it for their premiums, their cost sharing, nursing, infusion, and travel to medical treatments.
I'm going to vote yes to get
Thank
it out
you.
of the House. Hopefully we can get it out of the House and to the floor.
Thank you.
And I think we can.
Thank you.
Representative Koenig. Representative Kulkarni.
Explain my vote, please, real quick. I'm going to pass today. I think I understand the intent of this bill, but Mr. Stevens brought up some points that are concerning me. So I'd like to do a little bit more research, and I'll likely reach out to both of you. Thank you.
Representative Lewis.
Yes.
Representative Lockett.
Yes.
Representative McPherson.
Yes.
Representative Meredith.
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Roberts.
Yes, and explain my vote. I'm going to vote yes today. I also, I echo Representative Gooch's concern here, and I also would love to see a more holistic fix to all of our healthcare woes. But my yes today is in support of all of the advocacy groups that have come out in favor of this group, many of whom are charitable organizations that truly help people in my district. So thank you.
Representative Santoro.
Yes.
Representative Smith.
Yes.
Representative Stevenson.
Explain my vote. I'm going to pass today as well. I think, again, on the surface, I love the intent of this bill. If I could wave a magic wand, I would give us universal health care. And I love hearing Representative Gooch almost advocate for that as well. But, again, I think the heart of this bill is good, but, there was some concerning testimony that I feel like I need to dive into a little bit more. So I'll reserve my vote for the floor. Thanks.
Representative Upchurch.
Yes.
Representative Westrom.
I'd like to ask a question that my colleague brought up a question in my mind as she asked a question. So
You can explain your vote.
yeah, I'd like to explain my vote. Is there a reason that a nonprofit would need to get legislative authority to pay for prescriptions?
That is a great question. In 2014, CMS did pass a federal law that allows, that mandates insurance companies allow specific groups to provide financial assistance for patients. Those include like the Ryan White Foundation, Indian tribes, et cetera. It was silent on nonprofits. So some states have no problem accepting nonprofit charitable assistance, and some have said, well, CMS was silent on it, so we're going to not accept it. And that has forced many people to go into bankruptcy and not be able to afford their medications. So this fixes it, so it's not silent anymore.
Good point. Thank you. I vote yes.
Yes. Representative Bentley, would you like to schedule a vote on Senate Bill 44?
Yes, be a yes vote.
Thank you. Motion does pass, and we'll move to the House floor. Thank you, Senator Alvarado. If you want to stay seated. You're up next for, thank you, Ms. Cooper,
Thank
for
you all
being here
very
as
much.
well. You're up next for Senate Bill 45. I do have a committee substitute that I have sponsored and talked with the senator about. The change that it does make is that it changes the bill to where it does not apply. It removed the additional exception for prescriber that determines brand name drug is medically necessary, except for when the drug has been approved through prior authorization, step therapy, or exceptions approval. This is, in my thoughts, a little more consistent with the House Bill 72 that Representative Bentley passed through this committee and off the House floor last year. Some of the insurers are more comfortable with that language. So I would ask for a motion on the House committee substitute.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, we are considering the House committee substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee. So Senate Bill 45 is really a patient protection bill that's going to help Kentuckians afford their medications. And these two bills, the previous one, we had thought about combining into one, but I think there's different groups, and so we thought a little bit of a different issue, so we brought them as separate bills. And I raised this important issue both as a legislator and also as a doctor. I'm going to be joined today by Joey Klausing, who's the co-founder of Cure Cystic Fibrosis, and Dr. Ben Mudd from the Kentucky Pharmacists Association. They join more than 20 advocacy groups like the American Cancer Society, Hemophilia Foundation, the Kentucky Medical Association, Arthritis Foundation, several others, who want to ensure that individuals suffering from chronic conditions have access to the medications they need. Senate Bill 45 addresses a growing problem, a new insurance company practice called the copay accumulator adjustment that's leading to increased and often surprising out-of-pocket costs for Kentuckians when they visit the pharmacy. As out-of-pocket costs have increased steadily over the years, many patients, especially those with chronic conditions, have come to rely on copay financial assistance programs to afford their medicines. However, many insurance companies are refusing to apply the value of those payments made through copay assistance programs to their annual deductibles, and it's hurting Kentuckians. This would be like somebody in front of you, if you go through McDonald's or Starbucks in front of you, and they're going to pay it forward. They're going to pay for your coffee or your meal just as out of goodwill. They take that money, then you show up, and they say, well, you got to pay full price for it again because you're coming here. And that's just not right. As a doctor, and no one will know but the person doing it sometimes. And as a doctor, again, I find these kind of things concerning, and I know we've all heard from the insurance companies about making sure that people have skin in the game when it comes to the cost of health care. And we do need to be good healthcare shoppers. I've got a bill for that too, probably for next year on healthcare transparency for people to know what they're shopping for to make it easier in that regard. But this practice goes too far, and it punishes patients through unexpected additional costs. Studies show that when a patient's share of prescription costs become too high, they're often skipping doses, they stop taking their medicines entirely. That leads to higher costs down the road in terms of hospitalizations, ER visits.
Senator, we got a motion and a second on the bill.
I've said enough, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I know you have some folks online. Do they want to comment or just be available for questions?
Well, I know there's going to probably be some counter testimony. I'd like to have their testimony heard, if it's all right with the committee and with you, Mr. Chairman, just to make sure.
Yeah, this is a bill that the committee is
Familiar
kind of familiar with. So if they want to chime in briefly.
Sure, I'd like, if you could, if Mr. Klausing, if he's on the line, I think his testimony is particularly powerful, and I think the committee should hear it.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator. Once again, Joe Klausing, I guess Executive Director of Cure CF, a local Kentucky charity for cystic fibrosis. My son is 13. He has cystic fibrosis. His life expectancy is 37. So many of you serving on this committee would not be alive today, but for medication. He would not be alive today if he were in your shoes. In recent years, there's been significant advances. It's been covered in the Wall Street Journal, Time Magazine, the New York Times, discussing therapeutic advances. Unfortunately, these come with significant costs. I spoke to a mom, Brina Wicker from Bullock County last night, who has twins with cystic fibrosis. They're two. One medication for each of them costs $24,574.71. That's every month. So times that by 2, and she's $50,000. There are no alternatives to these medications. You may hear from the insurance lobbyists and those folks that, hey, we need skin in the game. Our kids have skin in the game. My son goes to Norton Children's every month to get pricked, to get blood drawn, to make sure his liver is still working. He goes to get blood drawn and labs done to make sure his lungs are still functioning correctly. I'm not here as a lobbyist. I just did a little research before. I saw, Anthem, Humana, and United spent almost $500,000 just on legislative lobby last year. My budget, $0. I'm just a dad trying to save my son's lives. You may hear arguments about put it on the backs of commercial insurance and why should they have to foster this stuff? Well, my daughter has 0 prescriptions. Okay, she's 9. My son has 13. So that's kind of the deal you get when you do insurance. Everybody's different strokes for different folks. If it doesn't fall on the insurance folks who they're negotiated with, it's going to fall on the backs of the parents and the folks with these terminal and chronic illnesses. The last thing I'll leave you with is 36-0. That's not the score of a UK game this year, unfortunately. It's the way this thing passed out of the Senate. It sailed out unanimously, and by no means a political junkie, but it seems that would be unique for this session. So I just wanted to thank you all for your time today. Happy to hear any questions if anything does arise. I know this may be the hay's already in the barn on this one, but if anything does arise when you hear from the insurance companies, folks, I'm happy to answer any questions from a parent perspective of a son with a chronic disease. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir, and we appreciate your testimony and being with us today. Senator Alvarado, any of your others, or do you want to move on to the other side?
If you've got a motion, I'll defer to you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we do have a couple of folks signed up in opposition to the bill. Again, we have Tom Stevens. Tom, if you're here and want to proceed.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In light of the Senate committee the House committee substitute approved today, while we still have a few concerns with the legislation generally, we're going to withdraw our opposition to the bill. Thank you for your leadership on this. We appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that. Do we have Connor Rose with us?
Yes, thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Connor Rose on behalf of the Pharmaceutical Care Management Association. We're the national trade association representing America's pharmacy benefit managers. And similar to Mr. Stevens' comments, while we do not support the original version of the bill, we do appreciate the work that's been done with the House Committee sub, and likewise would like to withdraw our opposition, and we are neutral on the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from Representative Bentley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Dr. Alvarado, and thank you, committee, for having attentive ears while he spoke. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I have one quick question. So subsection 2B says that this shall not apply to any fully insured health benefit plan or self-insured plan provided to an employee under KRS blah, blah, blah. Is that a state health sponsored plan?
That's correct. State
Yes.
Employee Health Plan.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Seeing no further comments or questions, we do have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Bentley?
Yes.
Representative Fisher? Yes. Representative Flannery?
Yes.
Representative Frazier? Representative Gooch?
Yes.
Representative Hatton?
Yes.
Representative Kirk McCormick?
Yes.
Representative Koenig? Representative Cole Carney?
Yes.
Representative Lewis?
Yes.
Representative Lockett?
Yes.
Representative McPherson? Representative Meredith?
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Roberts?
Yes.
Representative Santoro?
Yes.
Representative Smith?
Yes.
Representative Stevenson?
Yes.
Representative Upchurch?
Yes.
Representative Westrom? Chairman Rowland?
Yes, motion does pass. Unfortunately, we don't have a consent calendar, so it does go to the full House. Thanks for being here, Senator Alvarado. Hope you can get back to your committee in time to.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. They're keeping it open so I can cast my votes. Thank you, members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, thanks a lot. Moving right along, the last bill we will consider this morning is Senate Bill 71, an act relating to motor vehicles. Senator Carpenter could not be here this morning, so filling him in for him will be Mark Treesh and Paula Smith. Please introduce yourselves for the record, and you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Make sure that's on. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Mark Treesh, Executive Director of Insurance Institute of Kentucky. We are the state trade association for property and casualty, as well as life insurance. We do not deal with health insurance issues, only property and casualty and life. Paula?
Good morning, Chairman Rowland, members of the committee. I'm Paula Smith. I'm Senior Counsel for Kentucky Farm Bureau Insurance Company. We are the largest domestic property and casualty insurer in the Commonwealth.
And we do have one person online, Mr. Chairman, if he could introduce himself.
Yeah, please do.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Andrew Kirkner on behalf of the National Association of Mutual Insurance Companies. We are a national trade association comprised of more than 1,400 member companies, 13 of which are domiciled in Kentucky. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, we'd just like to thank Senator Carpenter, in absentia, I guess, for sponsoring this bill for us. It's one we've been working on for probably about a year and a half, or a little more. It is based on a model act passed by the National Conference of Insurance Legislators, and it represents the product of cooperative effort among many groups, not only the insurance industry, but we have worked closely with the Towing Association here in Kentucky, the Kentucky Bankers Association, Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, the Kentucky State Police, and we've also had input from the Kentucky Justice Association on a couple items on the bill.
We have a motion and a second. Any members of questions? Representative Smith, question or comment?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask a couple of questions and then make a comment.
Sure.
I was reached out, and I've talked to you over the weekend. I was reached out from a local company in my area that has a wrecker service for over maybe 80 years. It's been passed down to their family. Their concern was in the section dealing with that they shall not. And we discussed this, and I know I'm not an attorney, but I know when the word shall comes up, it's got a lot of strength to it. And his concerns was when they're out and they have made a haul, or they've had their trucks out, and when they come by and somebody's on the side of the road and they're needing assistance, it blocks that in one section, and then it comes back below in the next section and says that they can. So if you can kind of give me an idea of why there's a kind of a contradiction. I've been on this for a number of days, so I realize where you're coming from, that when there's an accident, you're trying to prevent a gang of wreckers flying in and swarming the accident and then having to deal with 4 or 5 entities on trying to pay them. So I understand where you're coming from, and I appreciate that part of it.
Yeah.
My concern is legitimate business that actually has the reputation of not doing that. They actually do their job. Is this a concern when it says that they shall not do something? What is your basis for that?
All right. Thank you, Representative Smith. And just to catch everybody up on the conversation we've had with Representative Smith, very pleasant conversations, I might add. We're looking specifically at information or the subsections 3 and 4 on page 10 of the bill, if anybody wants to look at that. And I will say this is language that is from the Incoil model, and also language that has been approved by the Kentucky Towing Association. The problem that we often have is unsolicited or stop-by towing, as you described it. Maybe somebody listening to the scanner, they get a call, hey, there's been a wreck here, come on up. Frankly, what that unsolicited towing does is it opens the door to some predatory towing practices, not saying anything about your constituent, talking about nationwide. But it tends to deflect consumer choice of who they're going to have tow them. If just somebody shows up at a time when maybe they've been in an accident, they've had a breakdown or whatever, it also can interfere with police rotations. the sections you're talking about are not really contradictory, but it's not uncommon in legislation to say you can't do something unless the following conditions are met. And that's what subsections 3 and 4 read together describe, because what it says in subsections 3, except as provided in subsection 4. So if you meet the condition in subsection 4, you can do this. Otherwise, unless you meet that condition, you may not, a towing company, while providing an emergency tow, and this is dealing only with emergency towing, not any kind of towing that's not covered by the bill, not private property towing or anything like that. They shall not stop at the scene of an accident for the purpose of soliciting services, moving a motor vehicle, or accruing charges. In other words, they can't come by unsolicited and take over the scene unless, in 4, a towing company may stop or cause a person to stop under the following circumstances: if they're requested to stop by a law enforcement officer, in other words, they're driving back from another tow, an officer's got somebody, your constituent happens to be driving by, they flag them down or call them. They're summoned to the scene by the owner or operator, or the person has provided consent. So in those circumstances, they may stop at the scene and provide services, but absent those conditions, then they may not. So they are not really contradictory.
Mr. Chairman, could I make a comment and then I'll be finished? I'm not trying to take up the committee's time, but one of the things that we discussed is, and I'm not sure every county has this issue, but I'm aware that there's some with a hook on the back of their truck and they go try to find business. Sometimes they compound the vehicle and it costs them a lot to get it out just because it was set idle on the side of the road. I'm not trying to protect those, but I'd like to make a suggestion over the interim, Mr. Chairman, that we look at certifications, professionalism, find them ways of training so we can eliminate a lot of this. And I think it can be eliminated that way, that we bring it up to a professional standard in the wrecker service. So that's something that I'd like for you to be open with in discussions this summer. And I appreciate the communication that we've had, and I appreciate you listening to my constituent.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Representative Smith. It's been a pleasure dealing with you on this, and we're always glad to entertain some further conversations.
Sure. Yeah, Chairman Rowland, just a quick comment to that too. Representative Smith, I appreciate that. And I just wanted to specifically thank the Kentucky Towing Association, and I'm sure that they would be happy to talk with you and with other stakeholders, because they have indicated that many of the provisions in this bill are already being done by most of the reputable towers. But again, there are those few that aren't exercising the best practices. And so they really wanted to put all towers on a level playing field. And so that's why they are aligned with this bill. They've been very cooperative. I'd like to thank Mike Penn with Holbrook Towing here in Frankfort, and Junior Ellis out of Ellis Towing from Bardstown, who have helped many months now work on this bill. So it has been a collaborative effort, but I'm sure they are open to conversation because they see bad practices as well in the industry. So I just wanted to thank everybody for working on this.
Yeah, and they even got on the phone with us during the middle of the ice storm when they were up to their eyeballs. So they did go up above and beyond, and it's been a pleasure finding an agreed bill with them.
Thank you. I think we have a question or comment from Representative Gooch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, and thanks, Senator Carpenter, for bringing this bill. This has been an issue for a long time out there, and we do know there have been people who are bad actors who would go out and tow someone into their place. They maybe have a fence lot or whatever, and some of the fees that they charge per day, plus the towing bill, it doesn't take very long for many cars to now the storage and the towing bill is more than the car's worth. And so what happens then is that the person has just lost their car or maybe the insurance company then totals it out or whatever because the damage maybe or plus the towing bill is worth more than what the car is worth. And so INCOIL has been working on this, I think, Mr. Chairman, for several years, and it's something that not only is a problem in Kentucky, but it's a problem nationwide. And I think that this bill has been worked on by a lot of people, especially at INCOIL, and something that this committee has worked on for many years here as well. I think it's a good bill, and I appreciate your bringing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Gooch.
Seeing no further questions or comments, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Bentley,
Yes.
Representative Fisher,
Yes.
Representative Flannery,
Yes.
Representative Frazier, Representative Gooch, Representative Hatton,
Yes.
Representative Kirk McCormick, Representative Koenig.
Yes.
Are you voting from your annex office today?
Yes.
Thank you. Representative Kulkarni,
Yes.
Representative Lewis, Representative Lockett,
Yes.
Representative McPherson,
Yes.
Representative Meredith,
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Roberts,
Yes.
Representative Santoro, Representative Smith, Representative Stevenson, Representative Upchurch, Representative Westrom, Chairman Rowland.
Yes, motion does pass, and thank you all for being here today. The bill will move to the House floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so
members of the
much.
committee.
Thank you.
Seeing no other business for the committee, I move that we are adjourned.